Ladies and gentlemen, it is officially day number 33 of the ongoing government shutdown, and I'll tell you what, it seems as if President Trump has just hit his boiling point, and that right this very moment, some pretty big developments are currently unfolding. Now, as we all know, not only was this entire government shutdown completely manufactured by Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, but also, unfortunately for them, it's totally blown up in their faces. Their plan has completely backfired. At this point, the majority of Americans nationwide not only want the government to reopen, but they also blame the Democrats for this entire situation, which is why, right now, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are currently scrambling for an off-ramp. In other words, a way out. In fact, take a look at this.
Are you hearing of any off-ramp to get this government open this upcoming week?
We certainly hope so. Look, we hope the government opens tomorrow. We have been saying this for 32 days in a row. The Democrats want to try to renegotiate the entire healthcare system that they created, by the way, and that's why they're holding the government hostage. They want to add $1.7 trillion of new spending and, again, give taxpayer-funded Medicaid to illegal aliens. That is a red line in the sand for President Trump and Republicans. He campaigned on ending that, and he did it with the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so Republicans and President Trump want to reopen the government, and then we can discuss tackling these very important issues before us. How can we fix our healthcare system? There is no one more committed to answering and solving that question than President Donald Trump. That's why you've seen him work tirelessly to negotiate good deals with Big Pharma to bring down the cost of prescription drugs in this country. That's why you saw him pass the largest tax cuts for working families and American consumers in history to put more money back into their pockets. He is committed to delivering on these issues, but not while we are holding the entire federal government and our country hostage.
And so, folks, there you have it. As we all know, President Trump isn't afraid to negotiate. There's a reason why everyone calls him the negotiator in chief. But he's not going to negotiate when he's being held hostage by a bunch of radically progressive political terrorists who are trying to extort hundreds of billions of dollars out of the federal government, which is, for the record, exactly what Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are currently trying to do. And so this is why President Trump is currently calling for the Senate Republicans to activate the nuclear option, which would allow the Senate Republicans to move forward with reopening the federal government without the support of the Senate Democrats. In fact, on that note, take a look at what President Trump himself posted on Truth Social just a couple of hours ago. Remember, Republicans, regardless of the Schumer shutdown, the Democrats will terminate the filibuster the first chance they get. They will pack the Supreme Court, pick up 2 states, and add at least 8 electoral votes. Their 2 objectors are gone. Don't be weak and stupid. Fight, 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 win, win, win. We will immediately end the extortionist shutdown, get all of our agenda passed, and make life so good for Americans that these deranged Democrat politicians will never have a chance to destroy America. Republicans, you will rue the day that you didn't terminate the filibuster. Be tough, be smart, and win. This is much bigger than the shutdown. This is about the survival of our country. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, President Trump very clearly just wants to continue pursuing his America First agenda with or without the support of the Senate Democrats. And actually, on that note, just a couple hours ago earlier today, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt added some extra insight into this entire dynamic. Take a look.
Caroline, real quick, is the president not concerned that if you scrap the filibuster, it will be used against the Republicans in the future, where the Democrats will pass legislation without any input from Republicans?
I think the president is realistic in realizing that the Democrats are going to do that anyway. You had 2 Democrats who were opposed to it, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. And where are they? Neither of them are in the United States Senate today because they were pushed out by the far left radical base that has completely taken over the Democrat Party. Again, these are radical left lunatics in charge of the Democrat Party today, and they will nuke the filibuster. They want to make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states. They want to pack the Supreme Court. They don't care about our sacred institutions in our country. And so Republicans need to play tough and they need to play smart. And that's what President Trump thinks.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, everything she just said is absolutely true. Regardless of whether or not the Senate Republicans activate the nuclear option, the Senate Democrats have promised that the next time they regain control of the Senate, they're going to do it anyway. So really, we can either go nuclear right now in an effort to save the country and undo all of the damage that the Democrats have caused, or we can sit idly by, accomplishing nothing until the Democrats ultimately regain control of the Senate at some point in the future and then go nuclear themselves, continuing to destroy the nation. So hey, I don't know about all of you, but me personally, I tend to agree with President Trump on this one. I think the decision here is pretty simple. But now, this is where Karoline Leavitt went on to really crank up the heat, so I want you all to take a look at this next clip here. But first, I do want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, take a look at this.
President Trump has spoken to Majority Leader Thune. He's also spoken to our great Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. And he's spoken to the whole world by putting his position out on Truth Social in a very public and transparent way, as the president always does. And he is 100% right. Let's talk about what we are dealing with here. Radical left Democrats who have shut our government down and held the American people hostage for 32 days in a row. We have air traffic controller shortages all over this country. Half of our nation's major airports are suffering from severe delays as we head into the busiest travel months of the season. We have 500,000 federal workers who are going unpaid. SNAP benefits have expired only because of President Trump finding a legal maneuver are our troops continuing to be getting paid. If it were up to the Democrats, our military and our law enforcement would not be receiving their paychecks like the rest of the federal government workforce. And Democrats are not showing any sign of wanting to reopen the government. They want to give taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens. These are crazed people that President Trump and Republicans are having to deal with. And that's why President Trump has said Republicans need to get tough, they need to get smart, and they need to use this option to get rid of the filibuster, to reopen the government and do right by the American public. We know, Maria, based on the polling and based on common sense, that the vast majority of this country wants the government reopened. That's what President Trump is willing to do. That's what he wants. And he's willing to use any lever to make it happen.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, as far as I'm concerned, that right there is precisely why we all voted for President Trump. Let's be honest here for a moment. Prior to President Trump's emergence in 2016, it seemed like the Republican Party had just become so accustomed to losing that they had pretty much given up altogether. And so when President Trump came down that golden escalator and told everyone, I'm going to teach you how to win again. In fact, we're going to be winning so much that you're going to get sick of it. It really was a reminder that we don't have to accept or tolerate all of the Democrats' anti-American antics. We are allowed to fight back. We are allowed to stand up to the radically progressive agenda of the Democrats. We are allowed to actually use the political power that rightfully belongs to all of us, we the people. But perhaps most importantly, we are obligated to actually put America first, which is exactly what President Trump is currently doing.